The metal bench felt cold even through her worn jeans. Lisa sat there in the park watching the world go by like she was invisible. And honestly, that's exactly how she felt these days. Invisible, forgotten, just another person the world had left behind. Her fingers gripped the brown paper bag a little tighter. Inside was a container of soup and a piece of bread. Not much, but it was everything she had. The soup kitchen volunteer had smiled when she handed it over, probably not knowing this wasn't just lunch for Lisa. This was dinner. This was everything until she figured out what came next. 3 months. That's how long it had been since she lost her job at the call center. They called it restructuring. She called it a nightmare. At first she thought she'd find something new quickly. She had experience, didn't she? She was a hard worker. But hundreds of applications later, her inbox stayed empty except for automated rejection emails. The savings went first. Every dollar she'd carefully put away over the years gone. Then came the hard choices. Keep the apartment or pay for mom's medications. The apartment had to go. She'd been sleeping on her friend's couch for a week before she realized she was overstaying her welcome. The way her friend's husband looked at her said everything without words. Now she was staying at a shelter when she could get a bed, and spending days in the park when she couldn't. Her phone was down to 5% battery, and she had nowhere to charge it. Her last clean shirt had a stain she couldn't wash out. And in her pocket she had $3.47. She'd counted it 4 times that morning, hoping somehow the total would change. Lisa opened the bag and looked at the soup. It was vegetable soup, still warm. The bread looked fresh. Her stomach growled so loud she actually looked around to see if anyone heard it. She hadn't eaten since yesterday morning. A kind woman at a coffee shop had given her a day-old muffin they were going to throw away anyway. She was just about to open the container when she heard the sound. The scraping, shuffling sound of someone going through the trash can about 20 feet away. Lisa looked up and saw him. An old man, maybe 70, maybe older. It was hard to tell. His clothes hung off his thin frame like they were 2 sizes too big. His hands shook as he dug through the garbage, looking for something, anything. Lisa watched him pull out a half-eaten sandwich, check it carefully, then put it in his pocket. The way he moved, slow and painful, told her his body hurt. Maybe his knees. Maybe his back. Maybe everything. His face was weathered and lined with a gray beard that needed trimming. But it was his eyes that got her. Empty, exhausted. Like he'd given up hoping for anything better. She knew she should look away, mind her own business. She had her own problems, right? But something wouldn't let her turn away. Maybe it was the way his hands trembled. Maybe it was the defeat in his shoulders. Or maybe it was because, looking at him, she saw her future. Another few months of this, and that could be her. The old man moved to the next trash can, and that's when Lisa saw him stumble. He caught himself on the can, breathing hard. He stood there for a moment, just trying to gather strength for the next step. And Lisa felt something crack inside her chest. Her stomach growled again. The soup in her hands was getting cold. She should eat it. She needed it. Tomorrow was a complete mystery, and this might be all she got. The smart thing, the logical thing, was to eat this meal and worry about tomorrow when it came. But she kept staring at that old man. And she couldn't do it. She couldn't sit here and eat while watching him dig through trash, even if it meant she went hungry. Even if it made no sense. Even if it was stupid. Before she could talk herself out of it, Lisa stood up. Her legs felt shaky, partly from hunger, partly from nerves. She walked toward the old man, the paper bag clutched in her hands. "Excuse me," she said softly. Her voice came out rougher than she expected. When was the last time she'd really talked to someone? The old man turned and she saw fear flash across his face. People probably yelled at him a lot, told him to move along, treated him like trash because he had to dig through it to survive. Lisa held out the bag. "I have this and I can't eat it all. Would you want it?" The man stared at her like she was speaking another language. His eyes moved from her face to the bag and back again. Suspicious, confused, like he was trying to figure out the trick. "It's just soup and bread," Lisa said, from the kitchen down on 5th Street. "It's still warm. For me." His voice was barely a whisper, scratchy and worn. "Yeah, for you." The man's eyes filled with tears. Actual tears. His shaking hands reached out slowly like he was afraid the bag would disappear if he moved too fast. When his fingers touched the paper, he let out a sound that was half sob, half laugh. God bless you, he whispered. God bless you, young lady. It's okay, Lisa said, even though her own eyes were burning now. It's okay. The man clutched the bag to his chest like it was made of gold. You don't know. You don't know what this means. I haven't had a warm meal I can't remember. Lisa nodded, not trusting herself to speak. If she tried to talk, she'd cry, and she'd been trying so hard not to cry these days. Thank you, the man said again. Thank you, thank you. He shuffled to a nearby bench and sat down carefully. Lisa watched him open the container with trembling hands and take that first spoonful. The look on his face, the pure relief and gratitude made something warm bloom in her chest even as her stomach cramped with hunger. She turned and walked away before he could see her tears. She headed out of the park with no destination in mind. No plan, no meal. No idea what she was going to do next. But somehow, weirdly, she felt better than she had in months. Maybe she was crazy. Maybe she'd just made the dumbest decision of her life. She'd given away her last meal and now she had nothing. No food, no money. No prospects. Just the clothes on her back and $3.47 that wouldn't buy much of anything. But as she walked down the street, hugging herself against the afternoon chill, Lisa felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. She felt human again. Not invisible. Not worthless. She'd helped someone. When she had nothing to give, she'd given anyway. And that had to count for something, didn't it? She passed a coffee shop and caught her reflection in the window. She looked tired, worn out. But there was something different in her eyes. A tiny spark that hadn't been there this morning. Lisa kept walking, trying to figure out where she could go. The library would be open for a few more hours. At least it would be warm there. She could sit and think. Maybe charge her phone if she could find an outlet. She had no way of knowing that her life was about to change. No way of knowing that someone had seen everything. That across the street, sitting in a parked car, a woman named Helen had watched the whole thing. And Helen was about to make a decision that would change everything. But right now, in this moment, Lisa just kept walking, one foot in front of the other, like she had been for months. Except this time, hungry as she was, scared as she was, she held her head just a little bit higher. Helen Rodriguez sat in her car with the phone still in her hand, but she wasn't making that call anymore. She couldn't, not after what she'd just witnessed. She'd pulled over to answer a business call from her restaurant manager, something about a supplier delivery. It could have waited, but Helen never let things wait. That's how she'd built her business from nothing to 3 successful restaurants across the city. You handle things immediately. You stay on top of everything. But then she'd seen the young woman on the bench. At first, Helen wasn't really paying attention. Just another person in the park. But something made her look closer. Maybe it was the way the woman held that paper bag, like it was precious, like it mattered. Helen had been in the restaurant business for 23 years. She knew hunger when she saw it. And that young woman was hungry. Really hungry. The kind of hungry that made your hands shake and your mind get foggy. Helen knew because she'd been there once, a lifetime ago. She'd watched the woman open the bag and look inside, seen the relief on her face. Then the old homeless man appeared, digging through the trash, and Helen had felt her heart sink. She knew what came next. People usually looked away, pretended not to see. That's what most folks did. Helen had done it herself plenty of times if she was being honest. But this young woman didn't look away. Helen had watched, frozen, as the woman stood up and walked over to the old man. Watched her hand over that bag. The only food she had. Helen could tell it was the only food. Everything about the woman's appearance, her clothes, her worn shoes, the way she carried herself screamed hard times, and she'd given it away anyway. When the old man started crying, Helen felt tears in her own eyes. When had she become the kind of person who could drive past suffering without stopping? When had she gotten so comfortable that she forgot what it felt like to have nothing? The business call forgotten, Helen watched the young woman walk away. The way she hugged herself, the way she walked with purpose even though she clearly had nowhere to go. There was something about her, something real, something rare. Helen knew she had to do something. She'd been given a second chance once years ago, and she'd promised herself she'd pay it forward. But life got busy. The restaurants took over. She wrote checks to charities and called it enough. When was the last time she'd actually helped someone directly? Really helped them? She grabbed her purse and got out of the car, practically jogging to catch up with the young woman. She was half a block away already, walking with her head down. "Excuse me," Helen called out, a little breathless. "Miss, could I talk to you for a moment?" The woman turned around and Helen saw the fear in her eyes, that guarded, careful look that came from too many bad experiences. "I'm sorry to bother you," Helen said quickly. "My name is Helen Rodriguez. I own a restaurant a few blocks from here. I saw what you did back there in the park, and I wondered if you might have a few minutes to talk." The woman's eyes narrowed slightly, suspicious, smart. "Talk about what? Could I buy you a coffee? Or tea, whatever you'd like. There's a cafe right here." Helen gestured to the small coffee shop they were standing in front of. "Why?" The woman's voice was flat, tired. Helen took a breath. She could give some polite answer, but something told her this woman would see right through it. "Because I watched you give your last meal to a stranger, and I'd like to know more about the person who would do that." The woman's face softened just slightly. "You saw that?" "I did. I was sitting in my car across the street." Helen smiled gently. "Look, I know this seems weird. A stranger approaching you. But I promise I'm not trying to sell you anything or convert you to anything. I was moved by what I saw. And I'd like to buy you a cup of coffee and talk for a bit. That's all." The woman studied Helen's face for a long moment. Helen could see her weighing the options, calculating the risks. Finally, she gave a small nod. "Okay, coffee sounds good." Inside the cafe, Helen ordered 2 coffees and insisted the woman get something to eat as well. She saw the way her eyes lingered on the pastry case. "Please," Helen said. "Get whatever looks good. My treat." The woman ordered a turkey sandwich and a blueberry muffin, and Helen pretended not to notice how quickly they disappeared once they sat down. She sipped her coffee and waited until the woman had eaten at least half the sandwich before starting the conversation. "I'm Helen," she said again. "And you are?" "Lisa." The woman took a sip of coffee and Helen saw some color returning to her face. "Thank you for this. You didn't have to. I wanted to." Helen leaned back in her chair. "Lisa, can I ask you something? That meal you gave away, was that your only food?" Lisa's jaw tightened. For a moment, Helen thought she wouldn't answer. Then she nodded. "Yeah, it was. So you gave away your last meal to a stranger? He needed it more than me?" Lisa's voice was defensive now. "I know it probably seems stupid to you, but—" "It doesn't seem stupid at all," Helen interrupted. "It seems incredibly kind. Brave, even." Lisa looked surprised. "Brave? Yes, it's easy to be generous when you have plenty. It takes real courage to give when you have nothing." Helen wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. "Can I tell you a story?" Lisa nodded slowly, still guarded but listening. 30 years ago, I was not much older than you are now," Helen began. "I'd just come to this country with my 2 kids and $40 in my pocket. My husband had left us. I didn't speak English very well. I had no family here, no friends, no job, nothing." Lisa's eyes widened slightly. Helen could tell she was listening now. Really listening. "One day I was in a grocery store and I was trying to count my money to buy rice and beans. Basic stuff. But I'd miscounted and I was $2 short. The cashier was getting annoyed. People in line behind me were sighing and rolling their eyes. I was so embarrassed I wanted to cry." Helen paused, remembering that day so clearly it could have been yesterday. The shame, the fear, the exhaustion. Then this woman stepped up, Helen continued. An older lady I'd never seen before. She paid the $2. But that wasn't all. She walked me to my car and put 5 bags of groceries in my trunk. Said her daughter used to live nearby and she'd want someone to help her if she needed it. Lisa's sandwich sat forgotten on the plate now. She was completely focused on Helen's words. "That woman saved us," Helen said softly. "Those groceries lasted 2 weeks. Gave me time to find a job washing dishes at a restaurant. That job led to another job. Then cooking. Then managing. Eventually I saved enough to open my own place." Helen smiled. "I never saw that woman again. Never got to thank her properly. But I promised myself that someday I'd do the same for someone else." "And that's why you're here?" Lisa asked quietly. "Partly." Helen met her eyes. "But also because I saw something in you. I've hired hundreds of people over the years. I can usually tell within 5 minutes if someone's going to work out. And what I saw you do in that park told me more about your character than any interview ever could." Lisa frowned, confused. "I don't understand." Helen reached into her purse and pulled out a business card. "I need someone at my restaurant. A hostess position to start. But there's room to grow for the right person. The pay isn't amazing, but it's steady. And it comes with health benefits and a meal every shift you work. Lisa stared at the card like it might bite her. You're offering me a job? Just like that? You don't even know me. I know you gave your last meal to a stranger, Helen said. I know you're going through hard times, but you haven't lost your humanity. That tells me plenty. I don't have an address right now, Lisa admitted, her voice small. I'm staying at a shelter. And I don't have... I'm not exactly put together for an interview. The shelter on Maple Street? Helen asked. When Lisa nodded, she continued, I know the director there. Good man. We can use that address for your paperwork temporarily. As for clothes, we provide uniforms. And I'm not worried about you being put together. I'm worried about finding someone honest and hardworking. Someone who treats people with kindness. Lisa's eyes filled with tears. Why are you doing this? Because someone did it for me once. Helen smiled. Because I watched you give away your last meal and I thought, that's someone I want working with me. Because maybe the universe put me in that parking spot at that exact moment for a reason. I don't know what to say. Say you'll show up tomorrow morning at 9, Helen said. We'll do the paperwork, get you a uniform, and you can start training. If you work out, great. If it's not a good fit, no hard feelings. But I think it will be a good fit, Lisa. I really do. Lisa wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Tomorrow at 9, Helen confirmed. She slid the business card across the table. The address is on there. Don't be late. I won't be. Lisa picked up the card with shaking hands. Thank you. I don't know how to thank you enough. Thank me by showing up and doing good work, Helen said. That's all I ask. They sat in the cafe for another hour. Helen learned about Lisa's mother's illness, the medical bills, the job loss, the downward spiral that could happen to anyone who hit a run of bad luck. Lisa learned about Helen's restaurants, her kids who now helped run the business, her journey from struggling immigrant to successful business owner. When they finally parted ways, Helen pressed some cash into Lisa's hand. For dinner tonight and tomorrow's breakfast. Consider it an advance on your first paycheck. Lisa tried to refuse, but Helen wouldn't hear it. You need to eat and you need to be rested for tomorrow. Take it, please. Outside the cafe, Helen watched Lisa walk away with actual purpose in her step now. Something was different in the way she carried herself. Hope, maybe, or just the relief of knowing tomorrow wasn't completely uncertain anymore. Helen got back in her car and sat there for a moment, feeling something warm and good in her chest. She'd almost driven away, almost made that business call and forgotten what she'd seen, almost let the moment pass, but she hadn't. And tomorrow, Lisa would show up at the restaurant. Helen was sure of it. She'd seen that determination in her eyes. That wouldn't disappear overnight. Helen started the car and smiled. Maybe this would work out. Maybe it wouldn't, but either way, she'd done something that mattered today. She'd remembered what it felt like to have nothing. And she'd given someone the same chance that stranger had given her all those years ago. That night, Helen lay in bed thinking about Lisa, about that moment in the park, about how close she'd come to not stopping. Life was full of these moments, wasn't it? These small choices that seemed like nothing but changed everything. Tomorrow would be interesting. Tomorrow would be the start of something. She could feel it. Lisa stood outside the restaurant at 8:45 the next morning. She'd been there since 8:30, too nervous to be late, too anxious to just walk in early. The building was bigger than she'd expected, nicer. Through the window, she could see white tablecloths and plants and what looked like expensive light fixtures. What was she doing here? This was crazy. Helen would take one look at her in the daylight and realize she'd made a mistake. Lisa had used the shelter's bathroom to wash up as best she could. Her clothes were the cleanest she had, but they were still worn and obviously old. Her shoes had a scuff mark she couldn't get out. She almost left 3 times, almost just walked away and disappeared. But each time she thought about that business card in her pocket. About Helen's kind eyes. About the way she'd said, "I believe in you," when they parted yesterday. At 8:55, the front door opened and Helen stepped out. She was wearing black pants and a crisp white shirt, her dark hair pulled back in a neat bun. She looked professional, put together. Everything Lisa wasn't. Lisa! Helen's face broke into a warm smile. You're early. That's good. Come on in. Lisa followed her inside, her heart pounding. The restaurant smelled amazing even though it wasn't open yet. Bread baking. Coffee brewing. Something with garlic and herbs. We open for lunch at 11. Helen explained as she led Lisa through the dining room. But the kitchen staff gets here at 6 to start prep. You'll work mostly lunch and dinner shifts to start, 4 to 5 days a week depending on the schedule. She pushed through a door marked staff only into a narrow hallway. The walls were covered with photos of people. Staff members, Lisa realized. Smiling faces, birthday celebrations, holiday parties. This is the break room, Helen said, opening another door. Inside was a simple room with a few tables, chairs, a microwave, and a refrigerator. You can keep food here if you want. Just label it with your name. We provide 1 meal per shift, but you're welcome to bring stuff from home too. Home. Lisa didn't correct her. Didn't say she didn't have a home. Not yet anyway. Helen led her to a small office crammed with filing cabinets and paperwork. Okay, let's get the boring stuff out of the way first. I need you to fill out some forms. Tax paperwork, direct deposit information, that kind of thing. The direct deposit form stumped Lisa. She didn't have a bank account anymore. She'd closed it when the fees started eating up the last of her money. Helen noticed her hesitation. No bank account? She asked gently. Lisa shook her head, embarrassed. That's okay. We can do paper checks until you get one set up. There's a bank branch 2 blocks from here that does free checking if you have direct deposit. We can get that sorted out in a couple weeks. Helen made everything sound so normal, so possible, like having nothing wasn't something to be ashamed of, like it was just a temporary problem with a simple solution. After the paperwork, Helen took her to meet the kitchen staff. Carlos, the head chef, was a big man with kind eyes and a firm handshake. His assistant, Yuki, barely looked up from the vegetables she was chopping but gave Lisa a quick nod. There was Tom on dishwashing and Linda who handled prep work. Everyone, this is Lisa, Helen announced. She's joining us as our new hostess. Please make her feel welcome. The welcome she got was warmer than she'd expected. Carlos immediately offered her coffee. Linda asked if she'd eaten breakfast. Tom just gave her a thumbs up and went back to organizing clean dishes. Helen handed her a uniform. Black pants, white shirt, and a dark green apron with the restaurant's name embroidered on it. There's a bathroom down the hall where you can change. The pants might be a little big, but we can get you the right size once we know what works. In the bathroom, Lisa changed into the uniform. The pants were indeed too big, but she found a safety pin in her pocket and made them work. The shirt was crisp and clean and smelled like fresh laundry. When she looked at herself in the mirror, she almost didn't recognize the person looking back. She looked like she belonged somewhere, like she had a purpose. The training started immediately. Helen showed her the reservation system, how to greet customers, how to manage the seating chart. The computer system seemed complicated at first, but Helen was patient. She explained things twice if needed, never making Lisa feel stupid for asking questions. The most important thing, Helen said, is to make people feel welcome. Smile. Make eye contact. Remember, for a lot of our customers, coming here is special. Maybe it's an anniversary or a birthday or just a break from cooking. We want them to feel like they matter. Lisa thought about how invisible she'd felt for the past few months, how people looked right through her or worse, looked at her with disgust. She understood wanting to feel like you mattered. By 10:30, the first servers arrived. Diana was older, maybe 50, with gray hair and laugh lines around her eyes. New girl? She asked Helen, looking at Lisa with friendly curiosity. This is Lisa. She's taking over hosting. Thank God, Diana said. We've been juggling it between us for 2 weeks and it's been chaos. She stuck out her hand to Lisa. Welcome aboard. Fair warning. Tuesdays are crazy, Fridays are insane, and if you see a customer with a crying baby, seat them in my section. I raised 4 kids. I can handle anything. The other server, Kevin, was younger, maybe mid-20s. He had tattoos up both arms and a nose ring. Hey, he said to Lisa. You've done this before? No, Lisa admitted. This is my first restaurant job. You'll be fine, Kevin said. Helen doesn't hire people who won't work out. If she picked you, you've got what it takes. At 10:45, Helen gathered everyone for a quick staff meeting. It was something they did before every service, she explained to Lisa. Check in about specials, discuss reservations, make sure everyone was on the same page. Lisa watched how they all interacted. Easy jokes, quick updates. They functioned like a team, like people who respected each other. It had been so long since Lisa had been part of something like this. Part of anything, really. Okay, Helen said when the meeting wrapped up. Lisa, you ready for your first shift? Lisa's stomach flipped. I think so. You'll do great. I'll be here watching for the first few days, so if you need anything, just ask. Diana and Kevin will help too. At 11 exactly, Helen unlocked the front door. The first customers came in at 11:15. A couple, probably in their 60s, celebrating something. Lisa greeted them with her best smile. Welcome. Table for two? Yes, please, the woman said. Do you have anything by the window? Lisa checked the seating chart, trying to remember everything Helen had taught her. I do. Right this way. She led them to a table, gave them menus, and told them Diana would be their server. The woman thanked her warmly. The man smiled and said something about it being his wife's birthday. Lisa made sure to mention it to Diana, who came out a few minutes later with a special dessert menu. The lunch rush built slowly, then all at once. By 12:30, Lisa was juggling walk-ins, reservations, and a waiting list. Her feet hurt. Her head spun with names and table numbers. But she kept smiling, kept greeting people, kept making them feel welcome. She messed up twice. Once she seated someone at a table that wasn't ready yet. Another time she forgot to put a party's name on the wait list, but both times Helen was there to help fix it. No yelling. No making her feel terrible. Just quick corrections and back to work. By 2 o'clock, the rush was over. Lisa was exhausted. Helen brought her a plate of food from the kitchen. Chicken with rice and vegetables. It smelled incredible. Lunch break, Helen said. You did really well for your first day. I made mistakes, Lisa said, sinking into a chair in the break room. Everyone makes mistakes. You recovered from them. That's what matters. Helen sat down across from her. How do you feel? Tired, but good. Lisa took a bite of the chicken and almost moaned. It was delicious. Really good, actually, Helen smiled. Good. You're a natural at this, Lisa. The way you talk to customers made them feel important. That's not something you can teach. You either have it or you don't. Lisa felt warmth spread through her chest. When was the last time someone had complimented her work? Told her she was good at something? The afternoon passed in a blur. There was a small dinner rush at 5, then things quieted down. By 7, Helen told her she could go home. Her first shift was done. In the bathroom, changing back into her regular clothes felt weird, like taking off armor, but in her pocket was something she'd never expected to have again. A schedule for the rest of the week. 4 shifts, actual work, actual money coming. Helen met her at the back door. Here, she said, handing Lisa a container. Leftover chicken from tonight. And some bread. For breakfast tomorrow. You don't have to. I know. I want to. Helen's eyes were kind. You did great today, Lisa. Really great. Same time tomorrow? Same time tomorrow, Lisa confirmed. She walked back to the shelter with the food container in her hands and something unfamiliar in her chest. It took her a while to recognize what it was. Hope. Real, solid hope. Not the desperate kind that came from having no other choice, but the kind that came from seeing a path forward. From having proof that things could get better. At the shelter, she signed in and headed to her bunk. The woman in the bed next to hers, Rachel, looked up from her book. You look different, Rachel said. Something happened? I got a job, Lisa said, and hearing herself say it out loud made it real. I started today. I'm working at a restaurant. Rachel's face broke into a genuine smile. That's amazing. Good for you. Lisa ate half the chicken and saved the rest for the next day. She lay in her bunk, staring at the ceiling, replaying the day in her mind. The customers' faces, the way Carlos had waved at her from the kitchen, how Diana had whispered, "You're doing great," when she'd looked stressed during the lunch rush. She thought about Helen, too. About how she'd taken a chance on someone she barely knew, given her an opportunity when she had every reason to walk away. Lisa still didn't fully understand why, but she was grateful. So deeply grateful she could cry, and she was determined too. This was her chance. Maybe her only chance. She wasn't going to waste it. She'd show up early every day. Work hard, learn everything. Be the best employee Helen had ever hired. Because 2 days ago, she'd been sitting on a park bench with nothing but a container of soup and $3 to her name. And now she had a job, a schedule, a purpose, a reason to get up in the morning, all because she'd given that soup away. All because one woman had seen it happen and decided to do something about it. Life was strange that way. You never knew which moment would change everything. Which small decision would ripple out into something bigger. Lisa closed her eyes, exhausted but peaceful. Tomorrow she'd do it all again. And the day after that, and the day after that. One shift at a time. One day at a time. Building something. Building back. For the first time in months, she fell asleep without that crushing weight of fear pressing on her chest. Tomorrow existed now. Tomorrow had a shape. And that was everything. 3 months passed like water flowing downhill. Fast and steady and sometimes overwhelming, but always moving forward. Lisa showed up 15 minutes early for every shift. She learned the names of the regular customers. She memorized their favorite tables. She figured out how to handle difficult situations without losing her cool. Mrs. Patterson always wanted the corner booth and decaf coffee extra cream. The Lopez family came every Friday night, and their youngest daughter was allergic to nuts. Mr. Chen liked to sit near the window where he could watch the street while he ate his usual order of sweet and sour chicken. Lisa remembered all of it, and the customers noticed. They started asking for her by name. They smiled when they saw her at the podium. Some left tips even though she was just the hostess, pressing crumpled bills into her hand and saying things like, "You made my day better." Helen noticed too. Lisa could see it in the way she watched her work. The small nods of approval. The way she'd smile when Lisa handled a complicated situation smoothly. They didn't talk about that day in the park anymore. Didn't need to. It was there between them, that understanding. That shared knowledge that both of them knew what it meant to have nothing. With her first real paycheck, Lisa opened a bank account. With her second, she bought new shoes. The ones she'd been wearing had finally given up completely, the sole flapping loose like a tired tongue. With her third paycheck, she started looking at cheap studio apartments. The shelter had been fine, safe, but it wasn't home. It couldn't be home. There were rules and schedules and 20 other people in the same room. Lisa needed a door she could close, a space that was just hers. She found a tiny studio in an old building. The paint was peeling and the radiator clanked, but it had a window that got morning sun and the rent was manageable. Barely, but manageable. Helen helped her move in, showing up with her son's truck and boxes and a gift of basic kitchen supplies. "Everyone needs a fresh start," Helen said, arranging dish towels in Lisa's empty drawers. "This is yours." Lisa stood in her empty apartment that first night, listening to the radiator clank and the neighbors argue through the thin walls. It was the most beautiful place she'd ever seen. Because it was hers. Because she'd earned it. Because 3 months ago she'd been sleeping on a shelter cot, and now she had a key in her pocket that opened her own door. Work got easier and harder at the same time. Easier because she knew what she was doing now. Harder because she started to see more. The kitchen ran on controlled chaos, and sometimes the chaos won. The servers dealt with rude customers and bad tippers and still had to smile. The prep cook, Linda, worked 2 jobs and barely slept. Tom, the dishwasher, sent most of his paycheck back to family in another country. Everyone was struggling with something. Everyone was carrying weight. But they showed up. They did the work. They supported each other. One Tuesday in month 4, Helen called Lisa into her office. Lisa's stomach dropped. Office meetings meant something important. Something possibly bad. Had she messed up? Was business slow? Was she getting fired? "Sit down," Helen said, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. Her face was serious, unreadable. Lisa sat, her hands twisted together in her lap. "Is everything okay?" Helen leaned back in her chair, studying Lisa's face. "Michael is leaving." Michael was one of the assistant managers. He'd been there for 5 years. Lisa had barely interacted with him beyond quick greetings. "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that." His wife got a job in another state. Good opportunity for them. Helen tapped her fingers on the desk. "Which means I need a new assistant manager." Lisa nodded, wondering why Helen was telling her this. Then it hit her. Wait, was Helen? "I'd like to offer you the position," Helen said. "If you're interested." The words didn't make sense. Lisa blinked, trying to process them. "Me? But I've only been here 4 months. I don't know anything about managing a restaurant." "You know more than you think. And more importantly, you have something I can't teach. You care about people. You notice things. You make customers feel important and staff feel supported. Those are the things that matter. But the other servers have been here longer. Diana's been here for years. Diana doesn't want the job." "I already asked." Helen smiled slightly. "She likes being a server." Less responsibility, better tips. Kevin's going back to school. And honestly, Lisa, you're who I want. You're who the staff wants too. I asked them. Lisa felt dizzy. This is crazy. I was living in a shelter 4 months ago. I can't what? Can't learn? Can't grow? Can't take an opportunity when it's offered? Helen's voice was gentle but firm. I know you're scared. Change is scary. More responsibility is scary. But I believe you can do this. More importantly, you need to believe you can do this. What if I mess up? Then you'll fix it. Like you fix everything else. Helen pulled out a folder. The position comes with a raise. Not huge, but decent. You'd work with Michael for 2 weeks while he trains you. Then you'd be on your own, but I'd still be here. You wouldn't be doing it alone. Lisa looked at the folder, then at Helen's face. This woman who'd taken a chance on her once already. Who'd given her a job when she had nothing. Who'd helped her move into her apartment. Who believed in her even when she didn't believe in herself. Okay, Lisa said quietly. I'll do it. Helen's face broke into a wide smile. Yeah? Yeah. I'll probably panic every day, but yeah. I'll do it. The training was intense. Michael threw information at her like water from a fire hose. Scheduling, inventory, supplier relationships, food costs, labor costs, health department regulations, employee conflicts, customer complaints, equipment maintenance. Lisa's head spun. She filled 3 notebooks with notes and still felt like she was drowning. But she kept showing up, kept asking questions, kept learning. The other staff members helped more than she'd expected. Carlos taught her how to spot quality in produce deliveries. Diana showed her how to read the dining room, how to know when servers needed backup. Kevin explained the POS system in detail. Even Tom, quiet Tom, gave her tips on managing the dish schedule during busy nights. They wanted her to succeed. That was the thing Lisa hadn't expected. She thought they might resent her, this newcomer getting promoted over people who'd been there longer. But they didn't. They helped her, encouraged her, had her back. Her first week alone as assistant manager, everything that could go wrong did go wrong. A supplier delivered the wrong order. 2 servers called in sick. The freezer made a weird noise that turned out to be nothing. But Lisa panicked for 3 hours thinking everything would spoil. A customer found a hair in their food and demanded to speak to a manager, and Lisa had to handle it with her heart pounding and her hands shaking. But she handled it. All of it. She called the supplier and fixed the order. She jumped in to help serve tables. She called the repair guy about the freezer. She comped the customer's meal and apologized sincerely, and they left happy. At the end of that first week, Helen found her in the office, head in her hands, exhausted. Rough week? Helen asked. Is it always like this? Pretty much. Helen sat down. But you did well. You kept things running. That's all you can do sometimes. Just keep the wheels on. I don't know if I'm cut out for this. That's exactly how I felt my first month owning this place. Helen smiled. You know what I learned? Nobody feels cut out for anything at first. You grow into it. You learn. You get better. And one day you look up and realize you're handling things that would have terrified you 6 months ago. Lisa thought about that. Thought about herself 6 months ago sitting on that park bench. If someone had told her then that she'd be managing a restaurant, she'd have laughed. Or cried. Or both. You're doing fine, Lisa, Helen said softly. Better than fine. You care about this place, about the people. That matters more than knowing every little thing perfectly. Over the next few months, Lisa settled into her new role. She got better at scheduling, at managing conflicts, at handling the 1,000 small crises that popped up every day. She started to trust her own judgment, started to believe she actually could do this, and she started to pay attention to her staff in new ways. Really pay attention. Linda was falling asleep at the prep station. Tom was losing weight and looked exhausted. Diana came in with bruises once and wouldn't talk about them. Everyone was struggling with something. Just like Lisa had been. Just like she still was sometimes. The apartment was expensive. Medical bills for her mom's treatment kept coming. Money was tight. But she had a job. She had stability. She had a chance. Others didn't. And Lisa found herself thinking about that more and more. Helen had helped her when she needed it most. Shouldn't she do the same for others? She started small. When she noticed Linda falling asleep, she rearranged the schedule to give her more manageable hours. When Tom looked thin, She made sure he took home extra food at the end of shifts. When Diana came in with bruises, Lisa quietly gave her information about domestic violence resources and made it clear she'd help however she could. Helen noticed, of course. "You're good at this," she said one day, watching Lisa talk gently to a server who'd made a mistake. "The management part, yes, but also the human part. That's rarer than you'd think." Lisa thought about the old man in the park, the one she'd given her last meal to. She'd been so hungry that day, so scared. But seeing his need had been bigger than her own fear. That had been the human part. The part that recognized we're all just trying to survive, all just trying to make it through another day. "Someone showed me kindness when I needed it," Lisa said. "I'm just trying to pass it along." Helen smiled, that knowing smile that meant she understood exactly what Lisa meant. Because she'd been there too. She'd received kindness and passed it along. And now Lisa was part of that chain, that ripple moving outward. One evening, Lisa was closing up when she saw someone digging through the dumpster out back. She recognized the bent shoulders, the careful movements. She grabbed 2 containers of food the kitchen was about to throw out and went outside. The person looked up, startled. It was a young woman, maybe 20, with frightened eyes. "Here," Lisa said gently, holding out the containers. "This is from tonight." "Still good. Still warm?" The woman stared at her. "Why?" "Because everyone deserves to eat," Lisa said. "And because someone did the same for me once." She went back inside and talked to Helen the next day about starting a program. Instead of throwing out food at the end of the night, they could package it up. Donate it to shelters. Give it directly to people who needed it. Helen loved the idea. "I've been thinking about something like this for years. Just never got around to it." "Let's do it." They started small, just their restaurant at first. But word spread. Other local businesses wanted to join. Within 6 months, they had a network of 5 restaurants all donating food to local shelters and food banks. Lisa coordinated it all. It was extra work on top of her already full schedule. But it mattered. It meant something. It meant that her worst day, her hungriest day, her most desperate day was actually leading to something good. Something that helped others. Every time she handed a container of food to someone who needed it, she remembered. The park bench, the soup, the old man's tears, her own empty stomach, and the choice she'd made anyway. She'd given away her last meal. And somehow, impossibly, the universe had paid her back. Not just with a job or an apartment or a promotion, but with purpose. With the ability to help others the way she'd been helped. With the chance to be part of the solution instead of just another problem. And that, Lisa was learning, was worth more than any paycheck. 2 years after that day in the park, Lisa stood in Helen's office staring at a piece of paper that didn't make sense. The numbers swam in front of her eyes. She read it 3 times before looking up at Helen. "You're retiring?" Helen smiled, but there was something tired in it. Something ready. "I'm 68 years old, Lisa. I've been running restaurants for over 30 years. It's time. But you love this place. I do. Which is why I want to make sure it goes to the right person." Helen folded her hands on her desk. That same desk where she'd offered Lisa a job 2 years ago. Where she'd promoted her to assistant manager. Where they'd planned the food donation program that now fed hundreds of people a month. Lisa's stomach nodded. "You're selling?" "I'm offering you a partnership." The words hung in the air between them. Lisa's brain struggled to process them. "What?" "I want you to buy into the business. Become co-owner. Eventually take it over completely." Helen slid another paper across the desk. "I've talked to my accountant and lawyer. We can structure it so you pay over time. A percentage of profits plus a small monthly payment. It'll take about 5 years, but then the restaurant will be yours." Lisa's hands were shaking. She couldn't seem to make them stop. "Helen, I can't afford to buy a restaurant. I'm barely keeping up with my bills as it is. My mom's care, I know. That's why I'm making it possible." Helen's voice was gentle but firm. "Lisa, you've helped build this place into something more than I ever imagined. The food program, the way you've trained staff, how you handle customers. You've made this restaurant better, made it mean something. But there are other people. Your kids don't want it. They have their own careers, their own lives. They're supportive of this. They like you," Helen smiled. "And there's no one else I'd trust with this place. No one else who understands what it means, what it could be." Lisa looked at the numbers again. They were surprisingly reasonable. Still scary, still a huge commitment, but actually possible. Barely possible, but possible. I don't know anything about owning a business, neither did I when I started. You learn. And I'll be around for at least a year, maybe two, helping transition, teaching you everything I know. Helen leaned forward. Lisa, 2 years ago I watched you give your last meal to a stranger. You had nothing and you gave anyway. That told me who you are. Now I'm asking you to take a chance. Take this opportunity. Build something. Lisa thought about that day in the park. How impossible everything had seemed. How she'd stood there with an empty stomach and no plan and no hope. And then Helen had appeared. Had given her a chance when she had every reason not to. Why me? Lisa asked quietly. Really, why me? Because someone gave me a chance once, and I promised I'd do the same for someone else. Helen's eyes were bright. Because you care about people, not just profits. Because you understand what this place can be. A business, yes, but also a community. A place that matters. What if I fail? What if you succeed? Helen countered. Lisa, you're not that woman on the park bench anymore. You're the assistant manager who runs this place so well I can actually take days off now. You're the person who started a food program that's fed thousands of people. You're someone who shows up, works hard, cares deeply. That's who you are. That's who I'm betting on. Lisa looked at the papers again. Her hands were still shaking. This was insane. This was impossible. This was terrifying. This was exactly what she needed to do. Okay, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Okay, I'll do it. Helen's face broke into the biggest smile Lisa had ever seen on her. Yeah? Yeah, Lisa laughed, a slightly hysterical sound. Oh my God. Yeah, I'm going to own a restaurant. We're going to own a restaurant, Helen corrected. Partners. At least for now. They shook hands across the desk and Lisa felt the weight of it. The responsibility. The opportunity. The sheer impossibility that she was here, doing this, becoming this person. The transition was harder than Lisa expected. Helen made it look easy, running a restaurant. But there were things Lisa had never dealt with. Insurance, taxes, long-term planning. Relationships with landlords and suppliers. Health inspections. License renewals. A million details that Helen had handled quietly for years. But Helen was patient. She taught Lisa everything, just like she'd promised. They met every morning before the restaurant opened. Helen would go over something new, explain, answer questions, then let Lisa handle it while she watched. You're doing it again, Helen said one morning about 3 months into the partnership. Doing what? Doubting yourself. I can see it on your face. Helen poured them both coffee. You handled that supplier negotiation perfectly yesterday. You saved us 12% on produce. But you're still wondering if you did it right, Lisa sighed. Old habits, I know. But Lisa, you need to start trusting yourself. You're good at this. Really good. The staff respects you. The customers love you. The business is growing. You're not faking it anymore. You're actually doing it. It was true. The restaurant was doing better than ever. Lisa had implemented new systems, improved training, expanded the menu slightly. Customer reviews praised not just the food but the atmosphere, the service, the feeling of being welcome, and the food program kept growing. They'd expanded to 8 partner restaurants now. They were feeding 300 people a week. Lisa had been interviewed by the local newspaper about it. The reporter had asked her where the idea came from. Someone showed me kindness when I had nothing, Lisa had said. This is just passing it along. The article had brought in donations. Other businesses wanting to help. Volunteers. The program got bigger than Lisa had ever imagined. They were making a real difference. A measurable, visible difference in their community. Lisa's mom was doing better too. The health insurance from the restaurant had helped her get better treatment. She still had bad days, but the good days outnumbered them now. She came to the restaurant sometimes, sitting at a corner table with her book, just wanting to be near her daughter while she worked. I'm so proud of you, she'd told Lisa last week. You've built something beautiful here. One afternoon, about a year into the partnership, Lisa was checking produce deliveries when she heard a commotion in the dining room. Raised voices. Someone upset. She headed out to handle it.